us. As to where the third person had gone, probably back to the vehicle that they had came in. And so they drive the car past my house, and the entire time, things being said, it's things that, they would want to say, how am I a problem at work? We drive, they take us to Ivory Park. The driver then parks on the side of the road, but by then, I'm confused. Out of fear, it be out of whatever that comes with it, I had passed out, and seemingly these guys, the only thing they were mainly concerned about was my phone. They had even
can you please explain the out-of-body phenomenon? I've heard people use that term. I'm not quite sure what it means.
I'm unable to do anything. I'm numb, I'm mute, I'm not responsive. I'm trying to even make sense of how I could even project this thing that I was going through. But in essence, I'm so out of it that I'm even unable to respond, to even lift, to even make a sound.
But you continue to see or perceive what's going on.
I continued seeing everything that was happening. I saw them drive past my house. To Ivory Park, but upon the Ivory territory, I'm not so familiar with it, but that's where the vehicle eventually came to a stop. And whilst halted there, they tried getting the neighbor now to open my phone and said that, but the information sifuna kule phone. I'm thinking, what information would that be? Why would I be in possession of any information that anybody would want in that element? Commissioners, this must have been one of the most scariest things by far, because I'm hit with this metal object, a firearm. I have another one sticking out on my neck.
When you described it earlier before we adjourned, you said you felt a sharp object.
Correct.
In your statement, you said you felt a cold object.
Correct.
Yes,
it was a cold object that had a reflection, a silver reflection on it. So if you just take a glance at it, you would seemingly think it's a knife under the circumstance, only to discover it is a firearm. And when we got to Ivory Park, and from recollection, they had then taken my phone, they had taken my wallet, but what puzzled me the most, it's the fact that I even had my bank cards in there. They could have easily accessed money from them. I'm driving a brand new vehicle that still had a temporary permit at the back that they could have taken. So what exactly do they want? They didn't come there for the car. They didn't come there for the wallet, nor the money. But the ultimate thing that was being said consistently was the phone that had information. As to what information, it is still unknown to me.
Thank you, Colonel. Perhaps you could continue from paragraph 55 and discuss what happened thereafter.
So they then request my neighbor to, they ask him as to what's wrong with me, but he then informs them that I'm epileptic. So the one had already exited the vehicle, so they instruct him to then come around and drive me to hospital. And he managed to move the vehicle slightly off. He's not much of a driver himself, but just to attempt in getting us away from it. And we then drove straight to home because my phone is gone, my bank cards are gone. The one thing that I would put as a priority, it is the stoppage of the bank cards. Upon getting home, was able to access the phone, one of the relatives. I then called a friend who I'd given my ID number to say, please call Standard Bank, call Capitec, that you block my cards. And I then moved from home with the guy. We went to the Rabasoto police station. Whilst at the police station, I'm registering this case of kidnapping and, being pointed with firearm and theft, robbery. They assist me to an extent that, the docket is open, the A1 statement is written, the 3M forms I've completed, even the cover, the docket cover, the diary SAP 5 is then made. And just on its completion, they then tell me that because at some point where this accosters had driven the vehicle, they would need to obtain the fingerprints. And, it was a correct procedure to say the least. But what had been a bit of a hindrance for me, commissioners, is this vehicle doesn't even belong to me. What they had wanted to do is they had wanted to take this vehicle and take it to their pounds, maybe between Van Rijn or even Eriton for that matter. I'm privileged by virtue of being a law enforcement agent to know exactly what happens at those pounds. A new vehicle coming in, coming out, it would be having certain parts gone, certain things removed from it. How am I then liable to things that wasn't my own making? I think it is the only thing that had directed me, or rather pushed me not to want to give in the vehicle for further processing. But I further suggested to the station and the guy that was assisting me, the officer that was taking the statement, to say, I do not mind if the LCRC is called to the station, that they process and take fingerprints at the station. But what would be a challenge for me, it would be that which would allow the vehicle to be taken to the SAPS 13 and be kept at their pound over a certain period due to the theft that happens there.
And sorry, Colonel, what is the LCRC?
The local criminal register record, the LCR, the criminal register, the local criminal register record, yes.
Local Criminal Records Center.
Centers, my
That's
apology,
at the top of page 15 of your statement.
My apology, Commissioner.
No problem.
Thank you, Colonel. So after you've explained your hesitation or reluctance to hand the car over at the police station, what then was the response you received there? You're at paragraph 58.
They told me that they cannot register the case. They told me that if I'm refusing then to have this vehicle taken into the pound, then they will not register the case.
Please continue.
So are we on paragraph 55, you said?
59.
59, my apology. So
maybe before you do that, Colonel Thepa, before this incident, had you ever had any incidents, negative incidents that relate to the performance of your functions?
absolutely not, Commissioner. Any altercation, any physical thing that would amount to this, that I'm further handled, for lack of a better word.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to think, and I'll mention personal experiences. When you used to have those detachable radios in cars, on one occasion that was stolen from my car, the police came to my house and did that dusting up thing and all that to take fingerprints.
You know-
There was a second incident also involving my car. I forget what that was about. Again, the police came to my house and again took the fingerprints at my house. I'm just trying to understand why the police could not have gone to wherever the car was to do this, or have things since changed?
Commissioner, it's still a confusing element for me, because as a law enforcement in my existence within the EMPD, in execution of my duties, I would recover vehicles. Part of the recovery would be summoning the LCRC, having a photographer come out to the scene, unless it would be with unfavorable weather conditions, that then they would request that, it be done at the station or even at the pound. But under no circumstance would they then say, let's take this vehicle to an SAP 13 pound for processing, whereas I know in my personal capacity that, these people do come out to the scene. And it wasn't even an instruction being given. It was a humble request to the SAPS and saying, please, the vehicle doesn't belong to me. If it can be processed at the station, I don't even mind waiting. I will do just that. But seemingly that wasn't the case.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Sorry, in that last paragraph, last sentence at paragraph 58, you say they declined to register the case at that point, even though the docket was completed. Can you just speak to that a little bit? Because you seem to be suggesting that there was sufficient information to open a docket.
Yes. So there was sufficient information. Already they had reduced to writing the statement I had deposed to them, and the fact that, here's an A1 statement that is existing. Here are the preamble statements, the diary that gets inserted into the docket, the nature of the crime that has been created, the elements thereof. But the only thing that was now a bone of contention was the physical object that they needed to impound. The docket was literally complete, Commissioner. I would believe that from that point, it would have gone to somebody for perusal, maybe a colonel of some, a captain of some sort, for perusal and just oathing, and then it was ready for processing.
Do you mention this in your statement, this which you've just spoken to now? Do you mention it because there's a particular point you want to make? And maybe let me ask it as a form of a question, that is it possible that you had this experience because the police officer that was assisting you may not have known that they could call the LCRC to come to the place, or do you think there was more to it? And if there was more to it, what is it and why do you think so?
I honestly suspect that the officer wasn't courteous enough to even attempt. Had there been such an act on his part, he would have then made further inquiries to the colleagues that he works with, or even maybe just checked with a station commander as to the extent to which they would assist in this regard. But of course, I wouldn't go to an SAPS station as a complainant and further want to dictate that as an officer, I know what my duties and work is. So I didn't want to project that in approaching them and say, but I know that LCRC could come. But I had recovered vehicles previously where LCRC could come and ABC. So it was really one of those that I just choose not to read too much into it. The SAPS portion, that is, let's just say it was an error of material error on their part.
Thank you, Commissioner. Col Thepa, you were at paragraph 59, please.
Yes, so at a later stage, my brother tried to assist to register a case, but I was not in a space to try fight. I wanted to heal from the trauma that I had experienced. During the weekend incident, one of the media liaison officers, Marima Shishi, came to see me. When she came to my house. She came a bit late, and I was between the station and home. She had said that she learned of my incident from one of the freeway members. A freeway unit, it is a section within the operations and specialized divisions, but freeway being more specialized services than operations. So she had learned of the incident from colleagues in the freeway unit. I was shattered. I was out of it. I didn't even say much. You know, all that I had told her was that I wasn't okay. I wasn't okay.
And Colonel, at the point in time where
Sorry, Ms. Muhlasedi, is there anything that you are perhaps implying here by, for example, saying only friends and family were aware of the incident? Are you implying anything?
I don't want to be drawing inference into things that cannot be substantiated, Chair, but it's prudent that one also reads between the lines in